Most people want to live a life of success. I want to live a life of significance.
Mm.
So legacy in terms has to be something that's implicated or left behind when you're not here or present. So what that means to me might be different than other people. I'm not looking to leave behind a bunch of wealth, but I would like to leave behind a bunch of value, things that could help men build great character, become married, step into fatherhood, step into building businesses, and also learn what it means to work under the throne before you work on the throne. I think that's a huge thing in our generation. We mistake. A lot of people want to, lead, but they don't want to serve.
Welcome back with another episode of Attractive Mindset. And today's guest, we have the money guru, the man with the plan, anything related to currency, markets, everything. This is the guy that you want to talk to. This is the guy that you want to know. I personally call him, but I'm going to let you introduce himself, Mr. Money Making Drew.
What's up, everybody? My name's Drew. 28 years young. Been in my niche for about 9 years now. It's been really interesting. The things that I've acquired, learned, and been able to adapt in throughout our everlasting and forever changing world. So excited to just get to know you and see where the conversation leads us.
I appreciate that. Yet another connect from the man himself, Mr. Mari. Secure your future. You know, this episode will definitely be out after, but Entrepreneur Link Up. We're going to have another one, bigger, better, everything that's the man to know. Super shout out to them. Make sure you connect. A lot of networking, a lot of people to meet, a lot of just new opportunities. You definitely want to be around like-minded individuals. But yeah, Drew, welcome. Appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And so, we're just going to jump right into the backstory.
Let's do
it. Who is Drew?
Little clip of my life, emancipated at 15. Went to the military. I know we got to speak a little bit off camera about that. I went when I was 16 for structure and discipline. I didn't grow up with a father. I had a lot of stepdads in and out of my life. So when I got back, I was a soldier without a mission. And when I got back into the corporate world, I went into high level sales. I worked for health and wellness. At the age of 18, I made my first 6 figures. And I wasn't really satisfied. I was actually working over 80 hours a week in the health and wellness field. So by the time I was 20 years young, I actually wanted to make a jump to get out of there. I started looking into entrepreneurship. I was sold by Ty Lopez. Steve Harvey is also one of my really big inspirations. And I was watching this video of Steve Harvey. He was smoking a cigar, talking about, if you don't want to be successful, it's because people don't want to take that jump. And I wanted to take a jump. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't have a plan B. I was only used to working that hourly job, showing up to make money. And I actually ended up making a jump. What's funny is the day I was making this jump, I was talking to my vice president and he had my EVP, which is the guy above him, on the call. And I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to tell these guys I'm gonna quit. And I'm actually rated number 2 in my district and number 1 in the company.
Oh, wow.
For the position that I was in. And I was going to be one of the youngest vice presidents for this business. And I was going to have like 80 employees at the age of like 19, 20 years young. And the average person was like 45, 50 years old in this position. And as I'm telling them I'm going to quit, this lady has a heart attack.
Wow.
In front of me. So I mute the phone. And where I'm working at, there's always like doctors or nurses in there. And the doctor's like, I got this. Don't worry about it. I've already paged it in. She's good. And I get back on the phone. I'm like, hello? And my boss at the time, he's like, I can't believe this dude's going to, he sounds like he's getting ready to quit on us. We've molded him. We've sculpted him. He's going to be one of us. And there's something about the way he said it that I heard when I unmuted. I was like, unfortunately, I can't be one of you guys. And I made a decision to leave. Rest in peace to my EVP. Years later, he actually committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
In this same job. So I feel like God was really maneuvering me and saving me during this transition of leaving the corporate world after the military. I was very lost, really bad. I didn't know what I was going to do. A few months after that, my sister actually got murdered from a domestic violence, arguing over money, stuff that happens. I don't come from a wealthy family. I don't come from rich parents. And I actually ended up taking in 3 kids, which are my nephews and my niece, when I was about 19, 20 years young. And I watched them. I went from, multiple apartments, different cars, to literally living with the guy off Craigslist I'm still very close friends with to this day. And just being there for those kids, it really changed me as a whole. I started cutting down trees, where I actually had my first encounter with God. Not very spiritual, not very religious, but a man started removing trees with me, and he would just cut these branches off trees and start talking about God and the works that he could do in your life. And I went from cutting trees for about 6 months to just wanting more. I started having that desire to go do something different. My buddy John Issa, back in the time I met in my other health and wellness company, rest in peace to John Issa too as well. Um, he called me and he's like, hey, Stars TV is hiring. And they want somebody who's ambitious, good looking, very intuitive, and adaptable to any environment. They want to start looking for possible agents. And he's like, this could be a once in a lifetime chance if you want to come possibly do some recruiting for the industry. So I did an interview, flew out to LA, did a couple of things, and I actually ended up working in the industry, not in the position I wanted to go to, but I kind of got my foot in the door when I was young to do a couple of things. But morally, I just didn't like it. Didn't want to do it. Ended up, getting back on the internet back in 2016, 17. And I'm like, man, this Ty Lopez guy is still talking about books are worth more than Lamborghinis. Yeah. So I brought his course. That course did help me in some ways, but I don't really believe in man being the mentor. I believe that God will put men in your life to help you, maybe give you words of encouragement or to help you with something they're going through that you're about to go through. So I actually went into entrepreneurship. I started as most people would start, young age, not a lot of money. I went to network marketing, built a really good name for myself in network marketing with a company I won't mention. And we did astronomical. I made crazy money. I loved it. It was phenomenal. Had other things coming in, royalties from the TV industry at the same time from previous contracts. And still years fast forward into that, just didn't find myself fulfilled at the age 23, 24. I'm 28 now. I actually found myself quite depressed, very suicidal, really burnt out, keep it in layman's terms, of not wanting to go or do anything. And I actually did make a decision to kill myself. Actually, July 12th of 2020, I was going to end my life. And that's when I had my first encounter with God. And it really did shape my life. It's changed me. I used to travel the world full time, go all over, state to state, country to country, stuff like this everywhere. And I stopped and I devoted my life to Christ. And I actually ended up adopting my nephews, got my family out of the hood, got married, had my first daughter, own 6 different companies now. And it's just been really interesting, man. So I wouldn't classify myself as a guru by any means. I think I'm just a person that's more available to be used in the direction that God really wants me to go in. So.
Got it. And so what do you feel like was the connection that really changed your mind almost overnight?
Well, I think it's a choice, right? I think life boils down to the moment of 60 seconds. It's the power of a minute, some time, of you deciding and making a decision of who you really want to become. And to become that person, there's certain levels of character that have to be built. Unfortunately, we get very comfortable and get very sold out on what we want. And I think to be the king that we're really called to be, we have to be sold out to what God wants us to be. And I was someone who wanted to get my capacity stretched. I got emancipated, went to the army, worked in corporate where my average employer around me was 30 plus. And even when I was in my 20s, I was hanging out with people who were late 30s. So I always want to be around the older, and I always want to be stretched in capacity wise. So I think the biggest decision for me was getting to where I wanted to go. If you believe in law of attraction, the mindset, I believe in generational curses. I really do that. There's spiritual principalities and things that are after your bloodline.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to be the last, but you can be the first to make the difference. So I just made that decision and I had to let go. I've been sober. Don't go out to bars, clubs, just not my thing. I stopped listening to secular music 3 years ago and really started watching my environment and everything I thought and the words that I spoke. And the decision for me was to think about it. I never had a dad growing up. So it's like I have a child now. I want her to have the best of best lives. I oversee my nephews, my brother, my mom, my dad, my other sister. So I want to help all of them out too as well. See that, I come from where you come from, and it's very possible to go out here and accomplish anything that you put your mind to.
Amazing. And so, you having a daughter, do you feel like that definitely enhanced or changed the way you did things?
It's crazy you asked me this. Someone just asked me this yesterday. No. The patterns and the habits I already formulated before having my child were only enhanced when having my daughter. I wasn't someone, I believe, I was ready for children. I grew up fast on my own. I kind of raised my nephews when I was younger too. I had I had fast sisters. They were always out and about doing crazy stuff. So my nephews always got pawned off on me. So I had a lot of practice with parenting, and my family, if they were here, they'd be like, that's daddy. They call me that naturally because I've always been the one to parent my family, even my own mother. She still makes jokes. She's like, you're not my daddy. So when I had my daughter, I felt like a piece of me was actually more complete. And I felt like the patterns and the things that I knew I was really deep down inside just came to the surface faster. It didn't push me, but it definitely gives me a brick wall to not move backwards.
Got it. Okay. So with all that and the change being now in your life, you definitely God and fulfilling God's purpose for you, do you feel like you're more aiming towards leaving a legacy? Is that something that you want to do?
Yeah. So dualistic approach. Most people want to live a life of success. I want to live a life of significance.
Mm.
So legacy in terms has to be something that's implicated or left behind when you're not here or present. So what that means to me might be different than other people. I'm not looking to leave behind a bunch of wealth, but I would like to leave behind a bunch of value, things that could help men build great character, become married, step into fatherhood, step into building businesses, and also learn what it means to work under the throne before you work on the throne. I think that's a huge thing in our generation. We mistake. A lot of people want to, lead, but they don't want to serve. So
Amazing. And so getting into like the business side of it. So what really made you hone in, especially after, you had your connection with God, what made you hone in on markets?
Well, when I first got started 9 years ago, I was very financially driven. So when I looked into the currencies and the cryptos, and I was looking into e-com, and I was looking into institutional, I wasn't just looking into day trading. I was looking at the management systems of how companies like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, Lincoln, these are big companies. You got Diamond Funding. There's so many big companies you can think of that are really managing billions of dollars. So when I started studying the management systems, that interests me more than anything to know that, for example, you yourself could put $1 million into an institution and they might give you up to, let's say, 4%, 4.5% APY on that money each and every year, right? When you look at the longevity of that, it's really designed to keep you there decades at a time versus the company might have a 25% year and they only have to give you 5%. That's why guys like JP Morgan, they have over 1,111 physical assets. They're netting 43 billion take home per year because it's a decade game. It's centurion. It's going to go thousands of years as long as the system is put in place. And as long as, truth be told, just like a bank, as long as the input's not bigger than the output, the systems can stay in place. So I got really invested into asset management and what that looked like and the back end of things versus more the retail side of just making the money and doing the marketing.
Okay. And so now that you're in these markets, are you more so in it for, just the financial stability, or do you have an aim to like teach other people what you do?
So financial stability to me, different point of view than most people. I believe we have exactly what we need as we need it. And what we have currently can get us to the next place that we need to be. My end goal, I want to help people have a safe haven. Making money is one thing, but getting your money out is always another thing. And in this generation, especially this decade, and we're in the most chaotic times that we've seen known to man, people are making money, but people are having a hard time getting their money out. So getting deep and educating people on different things like laws and regulations and liquidity providers and exactly where's this money coming from? Because if you're making money, someone's losing it. Where is it coming from? Who's willing to pay that bill to help you become successful? So really getting them to think much deeper. And then also just to be honest with people, in reality, you or myself are small pawns in a bigger game. It's always getting to know who's the bigger person behind the scenes that never wants to be seen, who never wants to be on an interview, who never wants to be in a room with anybody, but the touch of a button, everything moves. So that's always interested me too.
Got it. So as your mindset starts to shift towards this direction, what does your friend group look like now?
Very open. As we spoke earlier off camera, I accept everyone. I love everyone for who they are. I don't reject beliefs. I don't reject people's way of living, but very just focused on the end goal. I believe when we get to where we're going, the people that are meant to be there will be there. Also being a huge follower of Christ, I'm big into discipleship. We're assigned assignments in different seasons. So that means different people for different reasons. And it's going to happen, like we'll cross paths today. We might cross paths in 3 more years. We might look on one of these clips that may not hit today, but in 6 years, it'll go viral. So there's always a reason that it's happening. So I just assigned to who I'm with for the current season. It could be a lifetime. It could be a short time. It could be a forever type thing. But that's how I look at especially friendships and relationships when it comes to that.
And how does that interact, or how does that make you interact with people that you used to deal with a lot before you really found God?
I actually don't really deal with a lot of those people.
Gotcha.
Because to switch sides and go back would be backtracking. And there's no point to reversing what's already been forwarded. So when you think about this on the longer scale of things, it's like, why would I go back to the same people who really didn't love me? To love someone's not to let them drink, to do drugs, to not have monogamous relationships, to not actually agree with what they say. When you kick the cheerleaders out, you can really bring in the coaches. And I focused on having nothing but coaches in my life. I sat down with a friend of mine. He's a mentor to me. He doesn't know it really, but I sit down with him. And I remember when he was piss poor. And he's 32 now. We're 40 million. And he's still wearing flip-flops, being funny with the little belly, And back then on my other side, we can never connect. But when I switch sides, we have a great connection now. So I'd rather be around coaches who necessarily don't want to brother me. I want hard uncles or, strict dads in my life to make sure like, hey, if you're out of line, I need to get back in alignment with where God's taking me. So
like how you definitely put that. And so in the environments that you're in, you said the age group of guys that are usually in your type of position, what do they see when they interact with you or deal with you?
There's very few guys in my position at my age. And there's two different types of men. There's going to be the men who are going to get the slow game, and we're going to have to earn it piece by piece, brick by brick. We're going to have to build every relationship. And then there's also going to be people that are just gifted. These are people I believe that have really an annoyance. They don't really have to work hard. It's who they are. And like you said, what goes around comes around. It's going to naturally be in position for them to do it, because if it wasn't meant for them, it wouldn't happen. And I would like to add a third to that category too. You are going to have people that might get things handed to them, but handed without earning is the secret recipe for destruction. So people my age, there's few of them. I have a couple. I'm more of the younger one in my group. With the people that I do spend my time with, they're all in their mid 30s. I'm only 28 years young, but then my mentors are all 50, 66, and I have one that's 70 something years of age. So.
Okay. And so off camera, we definitely talked about you traveling a lot, so what is that, how does that affect your lifestyle with at home? You definitely seem very family oriented, but traveling also.
Yeah. So I say before God, I traveled crazy. Once COVID hit, it slowed me down the best way possible. I gave up security, I gave up provisions, and I gave up a lot of things that most people wouldn't let go of. At the peak during COVID, I was making great money, 1%, and I let it go because I wanted to find myself, and I thought that was way more important, and I'd rather start all the way over but start right and build it correctly so it can become a legacy versus build something in the moment I stop, it stops. So when COVID happened, I stopped traveling. I went from this crazy lifestyle, and some of my family members say I went way too much of a change, not piece by piece, but chunk by chunk. And I did go into the family lifestyle. It took me a couple years to get outside of the shell again, of getting back on the road. But I do believe in prayer and fasting and things of that nature. And in this past season, when I was praying, God was telling me there's a season I'm going to have to get back out there. So the 3 years in shelter could be the exact next 10 years of my life that people need, because I'm not really here for me at the end of the day. I might be here for you more than you think, or hear from somebody else I'm going to encounter while I'm in your state that needs a message or needs a word or needs some uplifting to go finish out what they're supposed to do this year.
And so how does your mom react towards, this new version of you? Because she's seen both sides.
It's expected. Not shocked. I think in the beginning, I was a little bit more arrogant, not being so rooted or so planted. I was more arrogant, more cocky. When I came to this side, I was a lot more loving, and just a lot more understanding, a lot more calm. I have a level of peace I can't really explain. I'm not really worked up, not anxious, not nervous, don't feel over energetic. I'm just always calm. And I think the first couple of years, it was different, because when you step out in front of your family, I was my mom's fourth child. So when you step out in front, I was the last, but then I became the first. I was the first to say, okay, you can make $1 million. You can have good credit. You can go get this house. You can have these cars. You can have money put up. You don't have to work this job forever. You can retire 10 years early. So I think for her to allow that shift to happen in her mind is still happening to this day. Same thing with my wife's mom, right? I think at a certain point in her mom's life, I'm becoming her peace. Her other son, her real son's crazy. And she's like, every time I come over, it's peaceful. And I know where peace is at is where God is at. So I think it even gives my mom the rest she's always needed. My mom was an orphan, and she's had a crazy life story too. She was a mixed child in the 50s. So I think about that stuff all the time. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
She was an orphan. Her mom gave her up, left her at the hospital. Her first child was through, unseen circumstances. And here I am, 1995 baby boomer. Not only that, she had a child with a white man when she was forced to believe she was only black and not mixed. So my mom has a lot of traumas and things. And I think the position that God has me in even gives her a place of peace too, as well, to see one of her kids is really leading the family in the right direction.
Got it. And so you found your now wife after you found God, right?
After the switch.
Okay. And so how did that go? How did that occur?
Most wholesome story you can think of, church. Yeah, just going to church. I went to church, wasn't seeking. Spent a year and a half, 2 years in celibacy, no masturbation, no porn, wasn't hooking up, wasn't even going on dates. Towards the end of that, I kind of started venturing out, kind of interviewing is what I tell people, because I was looking to get married. I was at church. I was going 4 or 5 times a week. And one day I was leaving church, and a buddy of mine back at the time, he's like, I have someone that's you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this person's you. Like, she speaks, it's you. Your mannerisms, character, it's you. So he brings her out. Previously, a few weeks prior, I saw this girl at church. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, excuse my language, but I was like, she's going to fuck my life up. Because I could sense it. There was something so much bigger, and she was beaming. Like, she had a big light coming from her. So when he introduced her to me, super standoffish, arms crossed. I was like, what's up? She's like, nothing. I'm like, what do you want? She's like, nothing. I'm like, well, what's your goal? She's like, well, I want to build a church or something similar to a church. I'm like, same here. I'm like, well, let's stay connected. And as I was leaving, I just felt the presence tell me to pray for her, let her know that what she's going through is going to be okay. And I ended up sending her some words of encouragement. And she like hit me back, and she was like, wow, this is insane. Like, and we met up. And when we met, I had a unexplainable audible in my head. I was like, this is your wife. And I told her that within the first 4 hours of us hanging out, I was like, I have to marry you within the first four hours. And I was true to it. And I was like, I don't need to know you. I don't need to know how. I feel like God is telling me that this is it. And here we are 3 years later. So.
Wow. Okay. I like that. And so, how important do you feel it is for her and yourselves to be, equally yoked, aligned with the same type of vision?
I love that saying, equally yoked. So you can be equally yoked, but you can also miss the blessing. If you get with somebody who's just like you, just as qualified, in what areas can you guys go stronger in? Sometimes the dualistic approach, which is the polar opposite, is what strengthens us. So if you're calm and she's not calm, then that gives you a chance to learn each other and grow to become yoked. I think in our generation, we miss the one, or we miss the actual thing that's for us, because we're always trying to look for what we feel fits us. It's not about always fitting in. According to the life that I've lived, it's been about standing out and being different. So when we met, I don't even think we were equally yoked. I actually don't think I was the man I am today to lead her out of the thing she needed me to lead her. And I don't think she was the woman she is today to be who I needed to be. So I think as we stay in covenant and agreement that divorce isn't an option, we're going to work through all problems, and there's always going to be problems, that we can get to the end of this. And through that journey, we become equally yoked. So I just don't believe in meeting someone's like, boom, we're just the perfect. I just don't believe in that. Without challenge, there's no God. And that's why our generation has kind of switched it. God's peace, God's no challenge, God's comfort, God's success, God's abundance. That's not really God. That's the devil. God wants to build you. He's much more concerned about character than he is comfort. So that's what I think about relationships. God, they have to be character building. They have to challenge you. Literally. And as a man, you know this. You're not tested till you're tested by a what? A woman. Dudes can't test you. A woman can test you. So.
Nah, I definitely like how you articulated that. Okay, so is it important for her to be a part of what you do business wise?
So we've actually went down this path. I believe we do everything together. I was into retail trading for a while with currencies. She's a really good trader. She's actually had bigger months than me in trading in much less time. So she's very articulated. We found a way to mesh in our passions together. Obviously I like to travel. I speak. I do a lot of stuff, different businesses. She's also into business building. And I think through her, I found a different side of my passions. And through me, she's found a different side of her passions. She's actually looking to get into real estate. I think that's a great idea. She's big into fashion. And I'm big into building things, so I think they actually complement each other. And we obviously do trade together. We do like investments and stuff together, build businesses, LLCs, credits, all that stuff. So we kind of have our things together, but we also have things that individualize us and identity to where it's not 100%. Even though we do everything together, we still got to have a little bit individuality in what we want to do and who we want to become. So when we bring that back to the table, it's still beneficial to where we want to go.
Okay. And so when you teach things to like your daughter or your nieces and nephews, like, do you want them to do the same things as you, or do you encourage them to do what they want?
Best saying in the world. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I would do. With my nephews, I believe being an example is the best form of leadership they're ever going to have. When their mother was killed, their dads are incarcerated for life. You know, when I went back to get them, they were not in the best housing situation at all. 3 of them to 1 bed. Toilet wasn't working sometime, sewage leak in the basement. And when I went back to get them, just to move them where I moved them to and be present and show them, yo, a man doesn't boss around his wife. He actually does clean up. He does take out the trash. And one rule in my house, the woman can't touch trash. You know, that's one thing. And men can clean, men can help, men can serve, men can do laundry too, right? You know, even though I can have maids and all that stuff, I think just being the best form for them was an example. And I don't really tell them what to do, but naturally I've noticed, because just like me, when I was 13, if it wasn't for my older brother, he planted a seed in me one time. He took me to Chicago when I never even left my city, been on a flight. He drove me there, took me out to these restaurants, concerts, and I came back and I was never the same. Still to this day, that one seed changed me. So with them, I brought them on flights. I've took them around the fancier cars. I've took them around big influencers, celebrities. And now they'll message me, you know, they're like, $1,000 ain't nothing. You know, 10,000 is nothing. We need to make that. So I see the conversation change. And I also see the way that they carry themselves has been a change as far as them wanting to come. And they also now believe in being married. Before they were like, we ain't gonna get married. You know, now they're approaching 15 and 12. They're like, we got to have one wife. You know, one wife, we got to focus. So I've definitely seen the change. And my older one, he's with me too. He's 19 and he's definitely huge shift. And he's actually pursuing the UFC. And I've been helping him with his investment there because he just loves to fight for some reason. It takes a special dude just to love to get hit. So
yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so, you know, there's a quote that I kind of like it, but I see the duality on both sides of it. You know, it's let me see. It's hard times make tough men make good times make weaker men make hard times, and it's a cycle that repeats. And so, you know, I've posted this on my social medias and like, you know, do you believe in this? And I get both sides of the fence. You know, what kind of statement do you feel like, you know, especially being on both sides of the fence, you know, do you feel like that statement is kind of true? Like you're creating this environment that's good for them, you know, that's definitely teaching them like, hey, this is the better side of life. These are the things that you get. You come on these flights, you do these things, vacations, et cetera, you know, but will they be able to withstand tough times?
So slowly but surely implement the things that you like them to see and do. But at a certain point in time, you have to fall back and give them the choice to go do the same thing that you've shown them. So I believe overall, when it comes to that saying built by Rome, right? Some of the greatest warriors in the world that developed civilizations, that if a man has and is built in hard times, but he goes out there and does one job and doesn't come home and do a second job, I believe that's where that saying originates from. Because if a man goes out there and is at war, but then he has to realize his household is also a war. And for some reason in this generation, we've stripped down the thought of building up our homes. Like a man just sits up, feet up, and that's just it. No, you have to build your business, but you also have to build your home. You have to build your wife. You have to build your kids. So with my boys, because they are my boys, and my daughter, even my wife, I'm always implementing my mindset. I'm always saying, okay, well, what would you do in this situation? Okay, if I wasn't here, how would you move? Or how would this get done? How would this get, you know? So I'm always trying to implement practice with them still to this day. And as they obviously grow up, we'll be able to do more physical things, pop questions or certain ways. I don't believe in paying for chores. That's never been my thing, but I'll pay if you complete tasks that can actually benefit you. You know, if you go run today, if you work out, if you read a book, if you get good grades, you know, just to show that you're showing that you care, you know, but school's not a must in my opinion. You know, those are things that I do to try to implement just for them to have good standards and good continuation of what's being implemented.
So you wouldn't mind if they didn't go to like college or anything like that?
No, I wouldn't mind at all. I wouldn't mind at all. I actually ask them that question quite often. Like, you going to college or are you going to work for me? Kind of playing that seed, being funny though. But one is like, you know, I actually do want to go to college. He's like, I want to pursue sports and go get the experience. The other one's like, I'd rather just finish high school and come right with you. You know, and it just depends where they're at that point in time in their life. So much can change over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. One thing could happen and they could just shift and want to go do something completely different. So,
okay. And so, and you saying something like, you know, them come with you, like, just give us a brief overview of like what your week looks like. What's a work week look like for you?
Usually just busy with calls. I'm very, I'm a balanced extrovert. So Monday through Friday, if I can, up early, get a workout in, get my meals in, and then I'm really on the laptop or on my cell phone for 10, 12 hours a day sometime. That's what I really enjoy doing. If I have a slow day with calls, it's immediately replaced with family time. I never take a day off, and I'm not always working, but I'm always working at something. So I'll stop a day like a Wednesday, say I'm having a day where I have 2 calls, just how my schedule is. People reschedule, things happen. I don't force new business in. I'll force more family time in, because one of the greatest people I have in my life, he has a great work-life balance, big family, lots of businesses, makes crazy, gargantuous amounts of income, but he's never sacrificed his family to do so. And he actually taught me that principle. He said, if you get a day off, go spend it with your family. He said, go pick up your other job. And that's always stuck with me. So if I have a day that's slower, I'm always going to go get the other job, which I'll spend time with my wife, my daughter, the boys, go see family, go take a drive, go do something, because that's also an investment too.
Got it. Okay. And so once you situate that kind of, aspect of it, how do you feel like, how do I want to phrase this? How do you feel like you really, I forgot where I was going with that. I completely forgot where I was going with that. And so hold on. You saying the work-life balance, you have 2 jobs and you're doing it in that kind of manner. For your companies, you have employees? Is it just you?
Yeah, so I have partners, and we have systems. So even if I'm not showing up some days to do something, there's still going to be money generated.
Okay.
There's always going to be gross at the end of the day. That's hands down. It's been 9 years to get it to that point. And there's a few of them that are just like that too as well. We live in a time where obviously there's always somebody working for someone you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's always good to be that someone's doing something for you that you don't even know you do something for me. You're just doing it. And as long as it's benefiting everybody, that's when you have a good company. I think if we can step away from what we're doing and it still move forward, that's a real company. We've confused wanting to build business with wanting to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be in the spotlight at all. I'd rather put someone else in the spotlight because that's their personality type and they enjoy it and they actually love that and they can make 1% of money for doing that. In the meantime, I want to give 10% of my time when needed on 6 different things instead of 100% on one thing. In the beginning, obviously you're going to give 100% to one thing to get to where you want to go. But once you start getting there and can diversify and start building and integrating different companies, you want to give 10% in each aspect. I do a men's life group. I have health and wellness company. I have this company. I have private equity. I have this. I have my family. I have my health. So I'm giving 10% in all aspects. And at the end of the day, they all get accomplished.
That's dope. That's definitely dope. And so what do you feel like would be 3 key pieces of advice for somebody that is just trying to get into that entrepreneur field, be a, master of all?
Number 1, remove the label. Don't even call it entrepreneurship. Find your purpose. Stop chasing your passion. Figure out why you exist. 2 important days. We've all heard it. The day you're born and the day you find out why. Aim for that. If you can find out why you exist, it takes me into number 2. You can reverse engineer the reason you were created and turn it into a product or a service so that you can actually do what you love doing or what God has told you you're designed to do. And then number 3, make sure it's something that is scalable and shareable, that you can do it with other people and other people can be involved. And I believe if you can monetize just those 3 things, that can get you anywhere you want to go. A lot of people want to be good at doing something that's extremely difficult. I don't want to do something that's extremely difficult. I wish I could have patented the little fuzzy thing that covers this microphone. Not difficult. And I guarantee the person who did this makes great money and he's enjoying life somewhere right now where we're using his product. So I just want to find something with people and have them do something that's also usable and everybody can be a part of it too. So I would have them focus just on those things.
And what are some books that you have in like your inventory of, things that really resonate with you?
I used to be a big reader. I stopped reading a lot of books the past 4 years. Now I've been reading the Bible a lot because that's a lot of books in one. Before that, I read all types of personal development books, paid for coaching, paid for mentorship, listened to podcasts. But learning too much is almost trying to duplicate another man, and that's not possible. You have to be yourself in your game. I think that's what actually makes successful people successful. They're themselves. They find out who they are, what works for them, and then they build it. I know learning from mentorship can cut the learning curve, but really that saying was originated in sales. Oh, you listen to me, I can help you get to where you want to go faster. And you always got to buy something from that person. But when you're not in a sales market, when you're not in that type of space, I believe the Bible. I do like reading the Bible. I just do. I read a lot of things by T.D. Jakes, Stephen Furtick. Those are more pastoral guys. So anybody in the pastoral space, I look up to them for leadership a lot, because those same biblical principles I've used, and it's tremendously changed the trajectory of my whole life versus my old life where I read all the books you could think of. The only books that helped me back then were John C. Maxwell. His like levels of leadership, how successful people think, that stuff really helped me. But all the other books I started reading back then, like Think and Grow Rich, that book never served me at all. People said it was popular. I read it, didn't make sense to me. I still to this day, other mentors back in the day, people listen to, they said they were popular, their things worked. I tried it. It didn't work. I'm not a big believer in read a book, then it gives you a vibration and an energy, and you transmute the energy, and then you become that thing the next day. I don't think that stuff works. I think it's actually designed to distract us.
And so with this newer age of thinking, with this more modified way of thinking for yourself, what are some obstacles that you see, if you see any, within your businesses?
Life, not even just business. Life is business. When you are your brand, or you are, I guess, the piece of it all, life. We live in a life that prevents us, not prevents us. We live in a life that hands us challenges each and every day, especially when you want to live polar opposite. When you do want to stand for something more traditional, something more concrete, and have a lot more backbone than most people do. You don't want to just be buddies with everybody. You don't just want to show up to every event. You don't want to go to every birthday. You don't want to hop on everybody's interview. You don't want to talk to everybody. You don't want to explain yourself to everybody. So you got to fight off the world. Also being okay with speaking how you feel. In your business, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not for 18 by law genders. Just don't believe in it. There's 18 classified. I don't want to work with people that believe in being one of the 18. I believe that there's male, there's female, and I believe that a lot of people want to suppress the truth and how they feel by going polar opposite routes. So things like that are conflict, and just how I think we should look as men. I don't think we have to be flashy. It's a woman's job to be attractive and carry herself well and maybe wear jewelry. Men, kings, were pretty simple guys. And I think we got to get back to more, and I hate to use this word, but more of the barbaric approach of some of even the quotes that you mentioned, like Rome. Rome was built, and they say, oh, you talk king, you can't talk wealth, because those are in the same sentence. You can't talk kingdom and you can't talk wealth, but you can. But I think we have to start changing. We're moving forward in the future, and I have to work in my business to let people know. And in my personal life, we're also moving back in time, though, the way that we're dressing, the fashion, the food, we're going more holistic. People are actually really getting back to themselves, and the one that don't want to do that are the ones getting confused.
Okay. No, that's wow. You've definitely, just dropped some life gems in general, that blend of life and business together, an approach that most people, even on here, off of here, whatever, they just don't take that route in general. And, so there's one last, it's not even a quote, it's like a statement. When things go wrong in people's lives, it's easier for them to blame God when Satan is out there doing these things as well. And nobody really points the finger at him like that. But they're like, wow, God is not helping me. How do you feel about those situations where things don't always go how you perceive them to go in your life?
I got you right here. We serve a God, but what's the other word? We serve a king. A king is structure and order. Who said it was the devil punishing you? I think sometimes we get out of cadence with that because we've sold this one-sided jellyfish God to the world. God is abundance. God's going to see you through. God's going to blow your podcast up. God's going to get you to the top. But where's the other side of that story where God's going to humble you? He's going to make you full of humility. He might strip your finances, strip the people that you love from your life to see if you're really focused on who he needs you to become. He's much more focused on character than he is comfort. And people don't have that conversation enough. He doesn't care how many posts you make, how many vlogs you make. He doesn't care how many times you shake hands, kiss babies. He cares about a man's heart and how it's postured before he allows him to lead other people. So if it's God's will, he's going to cover the bill. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of your people. I feel like people want, it's just like, and it's like my daughter, right? My daughter's so mad sometimes, like when I tell her no, it's like, it's daddy's fault. It's like, really, this is saving you. So oftentimes what's not working is protection. And it's like a detour into a higher elevation or step that you really needed to go. And what doesn't really work out really works out. One of my mentors in the spiritual, when I first started doing this walk with God, he used to tell me, he's like, if it's falling apart down here, it's all falling together above. And that's all, it's always stuck with me. And I've seen it time and time again. People's life will fall apart, and a few years later, it'll be all back full circle. Even better though.
Wow.
So you have to go with those hits. You have to take that defeat. And the Bible says that we move victory to victory, no losses, only lessons. So everything is imminence. It's a rising forward, even when it feels like it's not. We never feel like what we're becoming as we become it.
Mm.
You just don't. And then you look back 6 months later and you're like, whoa, I feel it. I'm him. So that's how I look at it. Same with women. Women are more emotional. Obviously, that's how we're designed. But even women, they have to go through certain things mentally. And we came from a fatherless generation. A lot of the women that we're seeing now in our age are from fatherless homes.
Mm-hmm.
And now we got all these men that are becoming, once again, leaders. So they have to understand what it means to be around good leadership and a good man and just different things. And that's what I say about that. Just don't give the enemy too much credit. God does more than just give. He wants to build. And it's just like you would your own child. You have to be punished too. You got to be put in timeout. You got to be told to wait. And people don't like that feeling.
Mm. So
they say, oh, it's the enemy. No, because also, if you say it's the enemy, you can miss the blessing that God's trying to teach you in the waiting room.
Okay. And so, you touching on the subject of, women, we live in an age where there's a lot more confusion around what the roles for a man and a woman would, would really do. How do you feel about that in the household, especially? You touched on it a little bit.
Well, I'm very economically driven. I look at statistics. By 2025, we are supposed to be in a she economy. That means over 50% of the female population will not get married and they will not repopulate. So that being true, I do believe it. I believe that our world's very predictable. If you look at it from previous patterns, where we're at, can always tell you where we're going. The way that men lead is going to start changing. Women are going to start making more money. There's nothing wrong with that. I told my wife the other day, I said, if you make more money, just know I'm a steward it. Like, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I want you to go make 100 million. I want you to go make 50 million, because a man that's confident in himself, why would you ever hold your woman back? Especially if we're moving into a time that is promoting women at higher positions. Mm-hmm. I'd rather help my wife become that person that she wants to become. If she's going to make 10 M's and I got to be a stay-at-home dad and organize and clean, so be it. That I'm never going to stop my purpose, because guess what? I can still find time to build my business too. We have to be okay with that shift. Men have ruled for a long time. Mm-hmm. Men will still rule. Let's just be honest. Even though women will be at a higher position, who built the buildings? Men. Mm-hmm. Who has the systems, the HR, the police? Men. So women are just being put more of the face of things, and men have to be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with a woman being successful. I just don't see that being a bad thing at all. And I only see an insecure man always that wants to overpower that. Like, let her be successful. That's just how I see it. Because what about your girl one day, your wife? Mm-hmm. She says, hey, I'm making $1 million a month. What you going to say? And you might be making $10K a month.
What do you need from me?
That's what I'm saying. But these other guys were like, preposterous. No, never. Yeah. We're splitting. No.
And so what about like the other factors out there outside of just the financial, if she's caught up in the aspect of, making more money and everything, a lot of people might say belittling themselves to do things like laundry or cook or clean, things like that.
Give it a try. Don't knock it till you try it. Who knows? You never know. I think that's the biggest thing you have to live by. You never really know. What if you did sacrifice a little bit of time? Is it sacrifice or is it obedience? What if you were more obedient to something you think that might have invested or helped out the overall picture for where you guys were trying to go? And if you did fall back a little bit, maybe like a teacher, you cleared your schedule for the summer so she could get busy and turn around in a couple of years. That might be the same thing that keeps you afloat when you need it most. So you always have to think about it as an investment. I don't see anything as a waste of time. Nothing happens by accident. Never. So there has to be give and take, and it can't always just be, I'm going to go out, hit the road, travel, do all these things, but you're just going to sit at home. That's miserable. Mm-hmm. That has to be depressing. If I was in that shoe myself, I'd be depressed. So I always say, okay, if I can do this for 3 weeks and then I'm going to take 2 weeks and fall back and you can go hard, and I'll do more of the laptop, or I'll, get our daughter off here, or I'll do these things or try these different things, because you have to see what works and what doesn't work. That's how we learn. A lot of people don't want to learn. They don't want to get educated. They don't want to do the work. They just want it to work. And that's the generation that we're in, unfortunately. So if we can fall back from it just working and start working, it's all going to make sense. But I will tell you, mark this podcast. In a few years, women are going to be more millionaires than men.
Yep.
It's becoming more of a thing. Women are starting to lead. That's okay. But behind every woman will be what? A very strong man.
Mm. Okay. So the last question that I do have, you talking about, the generations and everything. How do you feel like social media plays an aspect on our personal lives, but also our business lives?
Depends what you allow it to play. It can be very inspirational. It can almost, in a sense, also destroy you. It can give you an imagination that can benefit you, or an imagination that can really work against you. Women can want to become something they're not. Men can want to become something they're not. And oftentimes without social media, I asked myself when I made my transition, I always call it from light to dark, or dark to light.
Mm.
Without social media, would I have even been in this position if I never saw an ad, if I never saw this person, if I never knew these things existed? And because I saw those things, I decided to use it to catapult me and pull me in a direction where I wanted something higher, something better to me that looked more appealing. But also at times I found myself, even as a young man, comparing, could be in better shape, could have a nicer car, could dress nicer, could have a different watch, could have a bigger home. And because of those things, you have to make that audit, right? A lot of times we audit other people, but we don't audit ourselves. I had to stop following certain things. I had to stop allowing certain things on my Instagram, or, back in then it was like Facebook. I had to stop letting those things play. And when you start clearing feed, you see what you need to see, it's going to change you. So now I just focus on value specifically. I feel like if everybody could get online and find value and find what you need informational wise that you can take and apply, it can help you become who you're called to be, because we can't duplicate another man's life. I think that's a problem with social media. Women and guys want to duplicate what they see from other people. You can't duplicate another man's life. It's not possible. No two are made the same. Not even twins. Their DNA is different. So people have to realize that. And that law of comparison is crazy. You got to do the studies on the law of comparison. It literally will cause your brain to deteriorate on certain levels, with neurological endings will get burnt off because you stop making decisions. And your brain is designed to make decisions. And when you stop doing that because you've saw something you want out of somebody else, it actually deteriorates your brain to reverse engineer and makes you more zombified, where you're just like, hey, I'm just going to look like this and be like this because you've watched it so much. So social media could be good or it could be bad. That's the double-edged sword.
Got it, Drew. Amazing information. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I know you don't do things like this, but definitely this information, this platform, even what I would like for this platform, my goal, as I've told Amari, don't, and I tell people all the time, don't watch how much money I make. Ask me how many people I've helped in the process, and that's my bigger goal, just to set up things in a different light for people to get into different categories, people to do things that, they said we couldn't do. I definitely am an advocate for Black people, and that's just being 100%. I've been on that position of, before I even got into the military, gang involved, shot, stabbed, doing all of that type of stuff, and changing my life to like this kind of pathway where it's like, okay, cool, I'm more guided. I don't move with anger. I'm very calm, just like you said. That super resonated with me when you said that, because
Peace.
I'm at peace. I'm at genuine peace. I wake up, there's no stress. Most of my money's made residually, and so it's like, okay, cool. I have an open schedule and I have that time. And there are times where I can do other things, but I'll just take the time to just do what I want for me, do what I want for myself. I don't have kids or anything, but I'll just take that time to spend that time with myself. And I feel like that's what a lot of people don't do as much anymore, as well as, spend that time with themselves and spend that time with God, spend that time figuring out what it is they're really meant to do. And so because I do that a lot, I feel like he puts me in these positions to really build these platforms. And I never thought I was going to do a podcast. It's not something that I wanted to do. And here we are, and I've talked to a lot of amazing people and I had a lot of amazing stories. So yeah, I definitely appreciate you coming on the story. And, if somebody did want to connect with you or keep up with your movements, where could they find you?
I do Instagram, just Drew E. Humphrey.
Okay.
And then I have obviously the link. You can see all my connections, businesses, and things of that nature. Stay connected with me on a day-to-day basis.
All right. Hey, there you have it. Super intelligent, super, spiritual, super Definitely just love high level conversations like that, where it's not forced. It's not, somebody trying to exert, oh, I make this amount of money, I do this and that. It's a conversation of genuinity, vulnerability, sharing that type of information with us. And, the motto, as we say, we look good, we live good, life is good, talk to us and we talk back. And we are out of here.